Okay, welcome back to the second episode of Rewriting Bleach. I don't even know what I'm going to be calling this series yet, but it'll be something. Uh,
Hopefully, this episode will not be an hour long, but if it is, then I guess that's what you should expect from now on.
yeah, we can talk. Not a Bleach podcast, by the way. Not a Bleach podcast.
Not a Bleach podcast, except it is.
Except it's not because the TOMTalk brand covers many topics, of which we will see many later on. After we get out of the Bleach
Yeah, but
hell, that is.
look, Thomas, we have a habit of turning every Tom Talk into a Bleach Tom Talk. That's the kind of the meme.
Look, not a Bleach
We could
call.
be balls deep in we could be balls deep in Naruto, get bored because their Blood War arc is even dumber, and be like, "Man, we should rewrite Bleach again."
This time we'll just fucking full on replace Ichigo with Karin. And we'll see how the series transpires from there.
Revealing our hand a little bit.
Look. Anyway, today is the topic of today is Bleach. The other Bleach, Ichigo. Bleachigo.
Bleachy. The main character, Bleach.
Oh, Ichigo von Bleach.
Showing his German heritage there.
Yeah, I mean, he is a Quincy. Which
That's
segues great into
or is he?
segues great into our first point of what is Ichigo?
A miserable little pile of secrets, as it turns out.
The miserablest pile of little secrets, or at least this is a character interpretation that we're going to be rolling with probably to the end of time. So let's give a little history lesson for people who have actually read all the way through Bleach. First off, congratulations. Second off, I'm sorry.
We only read through the Blood War arc, and that's given us enough vitriol to last like a year.
We're still riding off of that vitriol. Oh, that's what inspired this actually.
Yeah. Every not a Bleach call we've had for the past year has only been because of the Blood War arc and rereading it.
I forget who suggested it of the two of us, but whenever that person said, "Hey, you know what we should do? We should reread Blood War." As a matter of fact, I think it was you because you never read it in the first place.
No, I did read it in the first place. I just forgot.
Oh, you know what it was?
I think I know. I think I.
It was me forgetting what a Quincy Arankar was.
Yeah, Quincy wrong cards ruined Bleach.
because while they only existed for about 4 chapters, they were a portent of things to come, so to speak.
Yeah, of things existing for 4 chapters and then not.
Oh boy, wow. Backhanded with that one. Anyway, so the topic of today is Ichigo, and exactly what is he? Well, let's do a little bit of a history lesson, as I tried to do earlier. Near the end of the series, or rather, kind of balls deep in the middle of the Blood War arc, which is the last arc of the series, saga rather. We have a little bit of a flashback, which I believe is called Nothing But the Rain or Everything But the Rain. I can't remember. It's something to do with rain.
Yeah, I think it's right.
Where we go over exactly how Mommy Ichigo and Daddy Ichigo fucked and made Bab Ichigo, and the amount of circumstances that led to that fated encounter. So what actually happened in that encounter? Well, Aizen was being a fuck one day and decided to create a hollow super weapon, as he is wont to do because he's a jackass, and
As he did.
kind of just leashed this very hollow like prototype out into wider Karakura town as a little test run to see what it could do. Well, what did it do? It found a very young Quincy girl named Masaki, who is Ichigo's mom, And they have a little kerfuffle that is broken up by, wouldn't you know it, Ishin, who is Ichigo's dad. And due to the pure poison nature of hollows to Quincy's, this hollow thing has irreparably inserted itself into Masaki's soul and kind of just soul bonded with her.
Kind of
And
just wormed its way in there like some kind of horrible parasite I don't want to think about.
oh, I'm thinking about it right now. Tapeworm.
Think of a parasite. Think of a parasite and think of how horrible it is. Now it's worse because it's in your soul.
Yep. And wouldn't you know it, old man Urahara stops by and is like, yo, we need to get her to a hospital, except psych, I'm the hospital. So they bring Masaki to his little whatever. Did he run a like a variety shop or something like that? Like, I don't know.
It was a candy. I think it was a candy store.
Yeah, but can't. Okay, whatever. Anyway, bring them that. He's like,
children for reasons.
yeah, that's true. And he's like, yo, shit's fucked in here. I'm gonna need you to get in this super gig eye that I made and stay in the human world so your soul energy can balance out this hollow so it doesn't completely swarm her Quincy soul and murder her. And then Ishin's like, yeah, alright, whatever. So then they stay together, and then like most stories like this end, and many dojins that I have read, they end up fucking. And
He saw her naked.
he did see her naked. That's true. He did see her naked. Fantabulous tits.
Wonderful.
Kubo, just drop porn.
First big rewrite of the series. Turned it into a 700-page long dojin.
Thank you. And they create a child that is Ichigo. And this kind of soul parasite, I believe in canon he is called Shiro. Now, I've been throwing that name around a lot tonight in our talks, but I actually can't remember the exact page where he was named Shiro, but I think he's called Shiro.
He's called Shiro.
Okay, yeah, he's called Shiro because it's white. He's white.
He's white.
His name's Whitey.
Kubo being racist when all of the evil people are from Seoul, Mexico?
Seoul, Mexico. Look, you're right, but you don't have to be. Anyway, Shiro moves from Masaki to Ichigo, kind of. It kind of gets blurry in that I think her life was still kind of at danger due to Shiro's poisoning, but I believe the beast itself kind of fully moved to Ichigo at this point.
It's his little Shiro parasite babies moved into Ichigo's soul.
It's something like that, yeah. And then throughout the vast majority of his life, he had a pretty normal childhood. Then his mom died. And his mom died during an Ashwaulen where she was stripped of her powers, but she was left alive. So in many ways, she was one of Yawak's chosen. Because she actually survived this soul purge that was normally meant to kill most mortals. However, she also had her powers taken at the exact moment that a vastly powerful dick-ass hollow decided to attack her, so she's super dead. Anyway, so what do we have? We have a Quincy plus distinction. A Quincy plus begat from a Quincy and a Soul Reaper with a very powerful soul parasite hollow thing living in Ichigo's soul. So he is part Quincy and he is part hollow. Now, most people, if they actually have read the series, would be going, hey, wasn't he a Soul Reaper as well? Well, if you remember our first talk, you'll remember Soul Reaper is not a race. That's an occupation.
And anytime you imply that Soul Reaper is a race, I will break into your home and swat you with a newspaper until you acquiesce.
It's true.
Especially you, commenter.
Well, that means that I'm just not going to comment on this video at all. Anyway, and normally you would be right because that's definitely what Kubo was trying to imply. But again, due to his own world's logic, that doesn't make fucking sense. So
it has the adverse effect of not making sense because he's a Quincy Hollow. But tit for tat.
So here we have a Quincy Hollow who, once the ball got rolling in his series, once he was lent Rukia's powers, kind of was forced into the pigeonhole of he is a Soul Reaper and was treated as a Soul Reaper. Because I think at this point in the series, Kubo, at the point in the series in which those facts were established, Kubo didn't even know what an Arankar was. Or even who Ichigo's mom was, or any of the events surrounding her and her inevitable death. So we're just going to chalk this up to Kubo as a hack, so we're using the advantage of hindsight to fix it. So he is a Quincy Hollow who is shoved into the round hole to his square peg of Soul Reaper and was brought up as a Soul Reaper and trained as a Soul Reaper, and is more or less used as a targeted hitman against things the Soul Society doesn't like.
Like Aizen.
Like Aizen. They really didn't like Aizen, turns out. So,
what did you do?
That's more or less what Ichigo is. Now, where's the problem? The problem is that, kind of due to his own logic, that kind of thing shouldn't exist. Mostly because we kind of just took out Soul Reaper as a race option for, all the logical reasons. So then we're left with Quincy Hollow. And then we kind of realized, what does his moveset really, really, really sound like?
He can move really fast, not unique to Soul Reapers. He has a sword which is never sealed, and as we discussed, he's the only one that's ever like that. Kenpachi is the only other person who's described as having a constant release Zanpakuto, and that's why it's weird. But that turned out to be a lie.
That turned out to be a lie, too.
So Ichigo's the only Soul Reaper, quote unquote, that we know of who has a Zanpakuto with no release state. It's always in its weird Shikai form, which sounds eerily like some Arankar we know, who don't just have a regular sealed katana. They just have a weapon. Like Baragon has his axe, Hollybell has her weird hollow sword, and a lot of other characters like that. Arankar are not pigeonholed into only having a katana the way that Soul Reapers are. Yeah. So Ichigo starts with that.
And then, as we progress through the series, we find out that he sort of has like a weird kind of totem that seems to follow him around wherever he seems to be, and that is a hollow mask. Now, I think he probably had the inklings of an idea forming in his head when he initially did his full transformation into a Soul Reaper in Urahara's shop near the beginning of the series. He kind of maybe had an idea and kind of started running with it more often than not. But it's this hollow mask that seems to follow him and is always in his possession, no matter how many times he breaks it or gets rid of it. Which is real weird. And then progress much later into the series when we meet the Vizards, who are what is essentially Arankars, but in reverse. And
Cars.
mock Arankars. And then we're like, okay, so he's a Vizard. Well, kind of, in some words. But the point being is he doesn't fit into any of these holes, but he very, very, very closely matches like a very human Arankar. He's a very human Arankar. In that all of his power seems to be in his sword and in his mask, and in his mask when he fully actually utilizes that later. That is when he is at his strongest. And
furthermore, with his Bankai, unlike most Bankais where it's an effect on the sword itself, or the sword is carrying over an effect onto you, most of Ichigo's Bankai power is manifested on his body. Ichigo is made physically faster, which is rare. That's not usually how that works for Soul Reapers, but it is how it works for Arankars.
Basically, the point we're boiling down to is he is an Arankar. He's an Arankar with a bit of human trappings just because of the nature of like how he came into existence, but almost all evidence points to him having an Arankar power list and moveset than any other pigeonhole he's been shoved to during the entire series. And step one of this rewrite is kind of acknowledging that a lot earlier on. So that is the problems with...
Well, before we get into that, we had some other issues.
Go ahead. Oh, I think I was actually about to segue into that, but you continue.
Oh, you were? Okay, it looked like you were about to segue into the rewrite, but yes.
No.
Go ahead.
Okay, so that's the problems with his physical being. That has no bearing on him, like his actual personality or anything like that. That's just the logistical problems with how he came into being, what he is treated as throughout the series, either by the people in the series itself or by Kubo. But there are some other problems with Ichigo and some other things that we're going to be addressing in this rewrite, and it is the actual problems with the character Ichigo. And namely his lack of everything. And what do I mean by that? I mean, he has the same knit brow, angry expression through 90% of the series that softens only sometimes. And he has the same general vague motivation of, I want to save my friends. Well, congratulations. Get in line.
And get a life.
Also, the fact that he really doesn't even treat his friends like friends. He treats them more like enemies that he tolerates.
Yeah. If he cares that they exist at all.
Much in the same way that he did to Orihime really early in the series. Orihime and that general Karakura Town gang of like raging lesbian guy who looks like he would be voiced by Yuri Lowenthal and third guy. Yeah, can't even remember.
He was on his cell phone a lot and he was kind of deadpan.
Yeah. Anyway, just a lot of problems where he just lacks anything that would make him a compelling character. And he treats everything with the same vague determination that he gives pretty much everything else. There's no real clear character arc of like him trying to resolve something within himself or trying to reach beyond himself at all. It's really just, okay, these people wronged me or my friends, so I guess I'm going to go fight them now. And I'm not really going to give any more investment to the situation beyond the absolute bare minimum.
He also really just doesn't have any agency at all. Ichigo doesn't seem to have any goals or desires. He doesn't want to be the sole president or anything. He just
Yeah, he doesn't want to be the sole president. And even when we get a brief reprieve after Aizen, when he actually loses his powers, and it's about to segue into the Fullbring arc. He does odd jobs for this random hot lady. Except he doesn't do them all the time because he is on loan to various sports clubs because he's the hottest shit since sliced bread. And he's like, like a kinda, but like, I don't know. And then, okay, and then I just realized this, and then at the very end, he becomes a doctor. When was it ever established that he wanted to be a doctor?
Literally never. He became a doctor because his daddy was, and they owned the building.
But okay, like I know why.
A doctor, just a back alley clinic.
Yeah, I know why, but I'm just saying, like, why on the grander scheme?
No, I think that is the grander scheme. I don't think Ichigo had any life goals, so his dad's like, "Hey, you want a basic of how to fucking suture fucking gunshot wounds?"
God, I want to slap him. Okay, like I'm actually noticing it on these the slideshow that I have right now, and almost every single one of these, except for like maybe 2, he has this like vague angry expression.
Yeah, that one was a good one. And this one's just vague determination.
Yeah.
Also, I'm realizing this was the first Bleach movie because that one has evil Rukia.
Yeah, I know this. Okay, I'm just saying. Look at this.
Yeah.
Anger. There's one of them, and we actually just passed it like a little while ago where he doesn't have an angry expression. That one's kind of still angry because he still has knit eyebrows, and it looks like he's about to stand up because someone's making a scene like across the bar.
Yeah,
that one just looks like he doesn't want to be here.
Yeah, and like there is a general theme of that in some of these pictures, like the one where they're coming up the stairs. It had that they were all kind of miserable looking.
Mm-hmm.
And this one where he's just being gangster, but like still,
yeah,
like Ichigo just never has an opinion on anything besides I gotta protect my friends, and Ichigo approaches everything in his life with the same amount of wonder and fascination I do approaching my dead-end minimum wage job.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, this was what I was talking about, where this is the only one where he's, like, not pissed off, which is also weird because Ukiura and Grimmjow are here.
Yeah.
That's weird.
And Byakuya.
Yeah. Most of the people in that scene he hates.
Or hate him.
Or hate him. Or both. Yeah, that's weird. Anyway. And he's just reading angry. Like, dude, come on. Anyway, yeah, just general lack of everything that makes a character and no real goal. But that's more or less what we're going to be addressing here. So, with that, we can actually segue into the actual start of the rewrite. Oh, a podcast about rewriting. That's novel to actually get to the rewrite at hour 20 now of recording.
Of this recording?
No. Total. Because we're at 20 minutes right now.
Okay, I was gonna say.
No, dude, we're not caught in a fucking black hole. We're not in a time dilation, dude.
I'm starting to wonder.
Anyway,
but point of interest here is that I do plan on working on writing this with Thomas here as well to help, and I will probably be publishing this for free, obviously because it's fan fiction. I can't monetize it. If you are interested in reading this rewrite, then probably set it down for now. Set this down for now, and read it when it comes out, or if it's already out, go ahead and read it. We'll probably put links in post.
Yeah.
And come back when you're done, so you can see how we came to what we did.
Yeah.
But if you don't care, then that was pointless.
That was pointless, and also, why are you here?
Yeah, why are you here?
Why are you here? Why are you on a series named Rewriting Bleach? Anyway.
To be fair, I would listen to a series called Rewriting Bleach and then not actually read it.
Okay.
That's something
Okay. Anyway, so let's start. So where do we begin? At the beginning, of course. So at the very beginning of Bleach, it's the inciting incident of Rukia going up against a hollow and having to transfer her soul powers over to Ichigo so we can get the ball rolling and he can become a substitute soul reaper, so on and so forth. Now almost nothing about this actually changes. Except for I don't know, should we talk about Tatsuki Hime right now? Or would that be saved for a later episode?
we can start it now.
Okay.
Before, spoiler for another episode, we're going to be combining and cutting characters. But the first one right now is going to be the combination of Tatsuki and Orihime into a character called Tatsuki.
For clarification, we are going to be calling her Tatsuki Hime, just so you know when we're talking about specifically the Tatsuki that Kubo gave us and the Orihime that Kubo gave us, and then the actual character of their combination, Tatsuki Hime. She's not going to be named Tatsuki Hime, she's going to be called Tatsuki, but clarification. So this is just going to be the establishing arcs of Ichigo and his initial toe in the water of actually fighting hollows, the whole introduction to the series of like what's a spirit, what's a soul reaper, how do we actually perform Kanso and purify a soul, blah 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 blah, so on and so forth. So that more or less plays out pretty much how it did. No real changes yet. Then we are getting to the establishing arcs of who is Chad, who is Uryu, and we'll go on from there. So Chad, we are going to be changing ever so slightly. And again, we're going to be getting much deeper into specifically the changes on other characters on a later date, but we're just going to give those slight rundown now. Chad, we are going to be making much more of an enemy to Ichigo. And not even enemy is the wrong word, rival, stronger rival. Because he desperately needs someone to play off of that is not, for lack of a better term, someone way above his pay grade. Because once we actually got later into Bleach, it really felt like his only rivals were like Renji to an extent and Kenpachi for whatever reason.
Was that a thing?
Not like I'm not even using rivals in the way that like we're in the way that you normally
Ichigo.
would. Yeah, Ichigo's rivals.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, because like
Yeah.
really the only metric we get for Ichigo's growth is the enemy that he is fighting against and the other people fighting alongside him, usually Renji or Kenpachi.
Yeah.
And Kenpachi being that upper ceiling, and Kenpachi really the only one going like, hey, I want to fight you because your number's big. So like,
your number makes it so hard.
Your number make me horny. But yeah, again, like again, they're not even really rivals, Kenpachi and Ichigo, but like it really feels like that's what Kubo is trying to do. Point being, Chad, we're going to be repurposing into a much stronger rival position for Ichigo, and they're never at any point in the series going to be like friends like they end up being. And to a certain extent, Grimmjow was also kind of a rival, but like even then, it was really understated.
He also kind of got memed for Morbid, so
He also got memed for Morbid, and we only ever see him again during his really horrible kill still from Naklevar and all that shit. Oh god, I'm
That,
going to enjoy rewriting that section.
yeah.
Anyway, so there's that. And then we get to Uryu, who's going to be occupying a lot of the same role, but again, kind of a different side of the coin here. We're using a three-sided coin, folks. Three-sided coin.
Some kind of Descartian nightmare of a three-sided coin.
Yep. And then Uryu is going to be the other side of that, and he is going to be kind of the posher side. That we're trying to represent a lot of Ichigo in these other people. Where Chad is kind of his more human side, slash it more represents his life in Karakura Town. Uryu would be the other side to that, where he kind of represents his Quincy side. And depending on events later on, Uryu's going to be bowing out from this whole friend circle, and we'll get back to him later. Anyway, just establishing arcs with those people. Again, minor rewrites to those characters, but more or less they're going to be playing out much the same. So then we have the whole incident with actually having to go to Soul Society. And here's where things get interesting. Because Rukia gets kidnapped by Byakuya, and the way that we are treating it in this rewrite is they are Byakuya specifically interrupts a three-way battle, not the other thing you were thinking of.
That's later.
That's later in the doujin. Between Ichigo, Chad, and Uryu. After a while of building up this three-man rival situation where they're all kind of competing against each other.
Sort of rock paper format.
Kind of a rock paper scissors format where Uryu's the long distance fast one, Chad's the slower short distance one, and Ichigo kind of meets in the middle. Byakuya interrupts a three-way battle between them and is like, I heard you bitches were harboring my sister. Well, too bad. She's kind of up for execution. So memes him from orbit, giving a pretty damn strong reason for Chad and Uryu to be there. In this rewrite, I should point out, because in the normal one, they were all friends, and friends help each other, so on and so forth, but in this rewrite, they were much less friends, and there'd be next to no reason for Chad and Uryu to actually participate in the upcoming arc.
Like they would see that they would understand that Rukia was in trouble, and they would still be classmates, but they wouldn't be as inclined.
It wouldn't be as inclined, but so giving them a nice, solid reason to want to kick Byakuya's ass for later would be a decent touch, on top of, not letting a classmate die. So making it personal in that respect. So then Ichigo gets his temporary Soul Reaper powers revoked, and he is basically left powerless, while Chad and Uryu are not. So this begins the first incident with Urahara, who introduces himself and more or less does the same thing that he tried to do in the original series, where he throws Ichigo into the spirit-eating bacteria pit and hopes that he comes out a stronger man, while trying to avoid a manslaughter charge in the process.
He's had a few. One can only have so many pits of despair underneath their candy shop without alerting the authorities.
So how does this play out any different? Well, given the new rules, or rather the slightly revised rules that we are operating off of, Ichigo is not a Soul Reaper and is not due to be a Soul Reaper, because that's not a thing. So, but he does have a lot of very convenient power locked within him in the form of Shiro. So while it doesn't exactly force him to draw out his Soul Reaper ness, it does allow him to repurpose Shiro into what is essentially his Arankar weapon. So at this point in the series, we are taking a square peg and a round hole and shoving it as forcefully into each other as possible. And due to no one really suspecting otherwise, because it works at the end of the day, Ichigo doesn't die in the pit of despair of spirit-eating bacteria, and he comes out with a sword, with a hollow mask, which is really weird. But then he breaks it, and it's Ichigo underneath, so everybody's like, oh, okay, whew, that worked.
He Arankars the mask. That wasn't good. That wasn't good grammar in either language.
He does something to the mask that makes that pun make sense. Yeah. Play on words, whatever. Fuck you. So they're like, oh, okay, whew, it worked. We're still operating off of pretty normal rules here. Except, again, you kind of forced a square peg into a round hole, and Ichigo's kind of soul situation happened to work with it. Except there's something really wrong here because, as we've said before, he is not a Soul Reaper, or at this point he's not even really a Quincy yet, even though he is. But like again, we'll get into that. He is an Arankar, or at least as close to his biological makeup can equate to one. So he still has a weapon, and they are able to actually go to Soul Society and begin that whole invasion. So we get to Soul Society, and this is another part in the story where things just kind of go as they were. Because, again, Kubo's not a bad writer, at least at this section of the story. It's when he has to extend beyond this, did it really get bad. There's a good setting underneath, but it really falls apart upon further scrutiny and further extensions. And that's kind of what we're trying to take out. But so far, so good. So then it comes time for him to awaken his Bankai. We've had all the fights we've had up to so far minorly changed by the changes in character of Chad and Uryu and Tatsuki Hime. But everything goes good. So then we get to the second roadblock of he needs to achieve Bankai. But Urahara has these little totems that kind of forcibly rip your Bankai, your kind of Zanpakuto spirit and place it on these things, and you get special training with them. And if it works at the end of the day, you get your Bankai in the end of 3 days. However, in this rewrite, we are going to be replacing the vast majority of this with it doesn't work. It doesn't work because there isn't a Zanpakuto spirit at the end of this rainbow. There are two things that reside within Ichigo. That is White Ichigo and Old Man Zangetsu. However, Old Man Zangetsu, as people who have read the series know, is not actually, real or actually a part of Ichigo. That is the Quincy half of Ichigo with a sleeper cell mission to stop Ichigo from attaining Soul Reaper power. And that is why every time that Zangetsu is trying to teach something to Ichigo, he uses Hollow Ichigo to do it, because he's not the real Zanpakuto spirit. But again, once again in this rewrite, there is no Zanpakuto spirit, so it just kind of automatically defers to Hollow Ichigo all the time, and Old Man Zangetsu, while present is much less of a thing, so he can't actually be forcibly pulled out.
Like, whenever Ichigo goes into his inner mind, Old Man Zangetsu would probably still be there, and we would probably lead into some narrative through lines with him. But this exercise Urahara tries just fails.
Fails and fails spectacularly, to the point where Urahara is like, huh, that's weird.
That literally doesn't... What?
So we have reached the second of a series of failures of understanding. And it is everybody failing to understand what Ichigo is, because kind of at this point we're tweaking a lot of characters, and a lot of these tweaks we're not going to be going over in this specific episode. But one of those tweaks is Urahara is less of the omnipotent god that he was in the original series, who kind of had so many irons in the fire at any given moment and was kind of treated as this like ever-present, always knows what's going on kind of person. So we're toning that down. So here we have Urahara trying to impart a Bankai upon him, and it's not working, it's not working, it's not working, until by the grace of God it does. Something changes within Ichigo. Either he gains some more nuanced understanding of himself, or again, they finally shove that square peg into the slightly octagonal hole this time.
They're cutting off the corners, but they get it in there.
They get it in there. And he finally achieves Bankai. Except, kind of still not really. Kind of still not really. So he gains unimaginable power for a short time, but he's still kind of going in at like 75%. So then the rest of the arc still plays out, and we get to the end with Aizen, and Aizen's a whole episode by himself.
Yeah.
The Aizen that we have planned is an entirely different Aizen. Well, not entirely different. It's based on something, but the actual...
He's a functionally similar Aizen.
He's a functionally similar Aizen, and we are going to be going over the depths of him at a later date. So the fight with Aizen... the fight with Byakuya happens, and then Aizen does his Aizen thing, makes off with the Hyogoku, and that more or less resolves itself. So here is where the first biggest departure from the series goes, and that is we are actually taking the Fullbring arc from way, way later, and we are moving it to now. So there is going to
Heavily
be...
reworked, but functionally similar.
Heavily reworked, but functionally similar in what actually happens and what we actually gain from it. Now, if you remember correctly, we gain nothing from it. Except the concept of Fullbrings.
It was in the actual manga, it was kind of just a reset to the status quo plus.
It was a reset to the status quo, and it explained where Orihime's and Chad's power due came from, because up until then, it was just treated as vague spiritual powers that they had lying latent within them. So it kind of gave us more information on that, but again, functionally nothing happened that entire arc. Except we got Tsukishima. That's about it.
It was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
And additionally, we'll go into this later, but what Fullbringers are would have been explained much earlier. Chad would know. I'm a Fullbringer.
Yeah, we'll go into this later, but Fullbringers would be much more of a thing throughout this story. And they would be present more or less from day one once Chad actually realized, once Chad actually awoke that power way back when, during the beginning. But again, another time, another day. But we're moving the Fullbring arc to here. And Ichigo himself will actually have very minimal investment into this, except maybe to be brought into the fold a little bit. Maybe still get a full bring himself and still have it ultimately robbed. But the focus in this new Fullbring arc is much more on Chad than it is on Ichigo. So he takes a back seat. Just know that he is present.
I'm going to take a stance and say Ichigo doesn't get one because that doesn't make sense. He is a hollow.
That is fair. I will accept that. So then we move on to the start of the Hueco Mundo arc, where we get the other instigating incident of Tatsuki Hime gets kidnapped, super hardcore. Except we're writing out Yami Largo because fuck him.
Yep, dumb character, doesn't need to be there.
Dumb character doesn't need to be
Additionally,
there.
the motivations are going to be different, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah. And I think Ugiura can just do it by himself. He doesn't need Yami Largo there at all. Tatsuki Hime still gets kidnapped, still gets taken to Hueco Mundo. And it is at this point that we scrounge together the ragtag team of Uryu, Chad, Ichigo, and then a few other Soul Reapers that are willing to go. If I remember correctly.
Nope.
No?
I think it was just the Karakura gang because we decided that Soul Society's presence was mainly focused on licking its wounds and then later getting ready for the invasion.
Yeah. So Karakura Town gang, and I think Urahara still, but not as a combatant.
Yeah, we're spoiler alert, we're writing out Urahara as a post captain.
Yeah.
He's just a kooky, spiritually aware dude.
He's a kooky spiritually aware mad scientist, but not in the same way that Mayuri is. Just more of he's been working for a very long time on various things. And he's gotten some good progress in certain areas, but that's about it. And he still has a minor network in Serete in the form of Yoruichi and other key figures, but that's about it. So then we have a much more compact cast going into Hueco Mundo, and it is there that he still meets Nell in the form that she is in and in the way that they did. Except now would be the time to start sowing the seeds of there's something weird with Ichigo, but more so than what we did with the Bankai. But it is of our design that Nell is going to be almost exclusively addressing Ichigo and what Ichigo does in hollow terminology. Or she's just going to be operating under the straight assumption that he is a hollow. Because, well, in this rewrite, he is.
So, she'll be talking about Ichi. Why don't you use a Sero?
And it would be a point out that she doesn't use this terminology or tell anybody else to do any of these things. It's just with Ichigo. So, but because she is in her child form, they just kind of brush it off of like, oh.
Oh, it does occur to me that we did miss a step because we did have the Visored arc. Just to kind of pare that down so we can continue on with the main point. More square peg round hole.
Yeah. More. I actually forgot that the Visored arc was. Yeah. Okay.
Basically, the Vizards take him in because they realize, hey, or they hear from Urahara, hey, he's kind of got some hollow crap going on. He's probably a Vizard. Maybe that's close to what we're looking for. And it's better. Ichigo gets closer, but it's still not right.
He is actually able to evoke his mask.
Yeah.
He's actually able to interact with that in a meaningful way, but again, he's just kind of He's just kind of making himself like a half step away from being in a wrong car at this point. He,
Like they're using the right concepts, but they're flavoring them towards being a Soul Reaper, which doesn't work. That's not what he is.
it doesn't work in the context of what he is, and again, we're getting so closer to a square hole. We're getting so much
It's
closer to a
like a
square hole.
it's like a 12-sided hole.
So close, real close, almost there. And back to what we were talking about. So he meets Nell. Nell implies some things, and then Hueco Mundo again plays out normally. But the thing is, we're missing most of the cast. So, uh, what's his name? Byakuya. Byakuya isn't there. Kenpachi isn't there. Rukia isn't there. And
No,
what are we?
Rukia is there. She Rukia is part of Karakura Gang. She's there.
Oh right, I think we forgot to go over that.
Okay, so in this rewrite, we'll get more into this later because it's not super relevant right now. Rukia and Renji are full-time stationed in Human World Soul Reapers.
Yeah. So that was actually kind of a restructuring that we're going to be doing with a lot of Soul Society, and again, we're going to be going into that much later. Where, uh, to spoil a later episode, half the captains are going to exist. Soul Society and the Gote 13 are going to become the Soul Society and the Gote like 7, and their
I think
various
it was
lieutenants.
6,
It was like 6, yeah.
maybe.
It was like 6 and their lieutenants. Because we're
And
deleting a lot and we're making captains who are fine by themselves, but not nearly should not be nearly as important, and we're just making them lieutenants to the other captains that we like more.
there's
Um,
going to be a lot of nepotism. Get used to that.
yeah, there's going to be a lot of nepotism, and we are completely removing Rukia and Renji from Soul Society. They are still Soul Reapers, but we are shifting them directly to Karakura Town because they fit with that group dynamic more. That's pretty much the long and short of that. So they are now part of Karakura Town. Uh, so they will be going on this wonderful carpet ride. So, but what are we missing? We are still missing Byakuya, Kenpachi, and Mayuri actually as another one.
Yep, and Unohana, but she really wasn't that involved in the first place.
Dude, I forget she was there.
Yep, she was in more or less a pure support role. Like one Hollow looked at attacking her and then decided not to,
Yeah.
or whatever.
So, but again, what are we missing out? We are missing out on whoever Byakuya fought, who I actually can't remember.
Zomari, the one who attacked Rukia after she fought Aranyeto.
Yeah.
The guy who could like look at you and imprint control marks on you with his eyes.
Yeah, okay.
And he was also heavily racist.
Good.
He was okay. Like I think we played with the idea of cutting some of wrong cars, but we'll get to that. But probably he's a good one to start with.
Yeah. And then we are also missing out on the fight that Mayuri participated in of the guy whose name always Xylopro?
Xylopro.
Yeah.
But we can just insert Uryu because Uryu was fighting him anyway.
Uryu was fighting him anyway. We're not going to be getting the most metal death of all time. But you know what? I'll take it.
Yeah. I mean, we could say that like Mayuri slipped it onto Uryu's person and his dad like reversing it. We can find a way.
There's another way we could almost. Oh wait, we could just have it with beat Urahara.
That's true.
That'd be great.
It fits really well with Mayuri, but for the sake of the story, I'm willing to have it be Urahara.
I would almost say that maybe during the Soul Society invasion arc, Urahara like palmed it off of Mayuri or something like that.
Oh yeah. Like the only other thing we're really losing in that situation is Mayuri's perfection speech, which is again a really good scene, but we can have that somewhere.
Yeah, we can do something with that. Anyway, so we're
Oh
missing
wait, no
out.
wait. I think we were gonna have Xylopro be one of Baragon's men, so we can just move our Xylopro to the Karakura Town arc.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, solutions to problems that we made.
I would like to point out that we are very much. This is very much a work in progress, so expect more of that.
We'll try not to divert too much in the actual recorded segments. That was just a blast of inspiration. I'd say.
Anyway, so uh, the fights happen. They happen more or less in the same way. So we still get Rukia's fight with dude in head and jar guy.
Aranieto.
Yeah. So we still get the whole past that she had with that Kiba dude,
Kai.
Kaiba,
Cayenne.
Kyan, whatever the fuck his name was. God, there's a lot of characters I forgot about.
There's a lot of characters Kubo forgot about.
Mostly because they're characters that are forgettable. So we still have that little character beat for Rukia. But that's about it. So everything progresses normally, and then we finally have that Ukiura fight where during that or before that, most likely during that, uh Ichigo kind of lets things fall into place for the first time, and he finally realizes why none of anything was ever working, and why he was just constantly drawn in this direction of very hollow techniques and approaches to everything. It's because he's an Arrancar. So after a long time, we finally have that realization of what he truly is. And in that moment, he is actually able to draw on what the closest he's ever gotten to his full power, and is actually able to beat Ukiura.
At the cost of his sanity.
Yeah, at the cost of his sanity, because he realized that he's not anything that anybody's ever seen before, and more or less a monster in Soul Society's eyes. But yeah,
Well, I was going more from the angle that during that fight he loses control, as previously stated.
but that too. I was saying there's a lot of factors going on right now. A lot of factors.
A lot of fucking irons in the fire.
A lot of irons in the fire. So, and once again, I utter the phrase of "we will talk about this later," but Aizen is gone at this point, and so is Baragon. Baragon is now spearheading a movement to Karakura Town in Aizen's stead, and will be performing the eventual plan that Aizen had started for himself. Uh, and it is in this moment that we have a very small respite arc where Tatsuki, Hime, Chad, Uryu, everybody, they all leave Hueco Mundo because they know where the next target's going to be, and it's going to be in Karakura Town. So they need to leave. Everybody linked with Soul Society needs to start sounding the alarms of shit's about to go down super hard in Karakura Town. Start mobilizing the troops. However, Ichigo stays behind because during this whole fight in Hueco Mundo, he's been meeting some more personable and approachable Arrancar in the form of Nell and Stark, Coyote Stark.
And like kind of half Hollybell.
And half Hollybell, who tolerates his existence and no more. Maybe not even that, but yeah.
She's in the room, and then
yeah. So then they actually have a moment to sit down and talk because things have finally quieted down in Hueco Mundo, much to Nell's and Stark's relief. Because all the young upstarts are gone, and all the old guard is gone, who are kind of steering Hueco Mundo into a bad place. And it's just them. So now we can actually talk to this new Arrancar, this newly awoken Arrancar. And Nell really wants to get into it. However, she has the problem of she does keep phasing in and out of consciousness and adulthood, more or less. So she approaches Stark and more or less asks if Stark could maybe pass some knowledge upon this young impressionable lad. And Stark is like, "Well, I don't want to, but he's a good kid. But I also still don't want to." So it would be a back and forth between Stark just wants to be left alone, but they're so insistent, so Stark eventually caves and is like, "Okay, so here's how you actually exist for once." And this is the first time that Ichigo truly gets what he needs, which is a good talking to about what he is and how he fits into everything. So this whole deal right here, where he's talking to Ichigo and is more or less giving a minor training arc to him in the process, this is going to be replacing the time that was spent in the Dangai, back when Ichigo was learning his ultimate Bankai technique. And yeah, that's just going to completely supplant that. So Ichigo's going to be here for a while, at least like a week or two. While Fate Karakura Town gets set up, and then everybody can actually mobilize there, and we can have all the players on the field at the same time. So the fights transpire. Bargon is finally taken down. And then we get to Aizen Redo Part 2, where Aizen tries to complete his plan because he is reformed from the power of the Hogyoku and tries to finish the job. However, Ichigo comes in, saves the day in his fully perfected Arrancar form with Resurrection. Except, I'll let Trevor take this.
It is at this point, Ichigo in this Resurrection state would kind of be some kind of cross between his full hollow form that we see in the Okiura fight and the form we see at the end of the series. So it's Ichigo, but he's got a lot of hollow features. He's got a hole. He's got the horns. Maybe he's got the long hair because it's really cool.
Yeah.
But now he's foregone the sword. The sword is now, like, maybe he still has like the Bankai version looking of his sword because that's okay. But like that aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
And he is fighting against Aizen, and he's getting in good hits. He's a lot stronger than the average Arrancar, and a little stronger than the average captain, which is where Aizen's at. Which, by the way, we're dropping the power season to about there.
Yeah.
We're fighting kind of at our peak. Ichigo's doing the damage, but Aizen's not really going down. It is here where we take advantage of another element of being in a wrong car that we probably should have mentioned last episode, but I just remembered now because I'm an idiot. This is brought up in the fight between Uryu and Sarusi Sandrovich, one of the Privaron Espada, where if you take major, like if your form is physically altered in your Resurrection, it gives you a boost in power, but you can never revert back. You can never steal your power, and this is implied to be like a desperation tactic for an Arrancar. So, for example, if like your arm gets cut off while in your Resurrection, if you lose a leg, if your horns are broken, if like a wing is cut off, you gain a boost in power temporarily, but you are basically crippled forever. You can never seal your Zanpakuto again, and you lose a lot of power. This would have been explained probably at some point in the Dangai, where Stark is explaining the benefits and risks of going into a resurrection. Obviously, it's stronger, but you have this risk factor.
I would like to probably say that we can have this kind of explanation uh, the same way that it happened in the original series with Uryu, but Ichigo wouldn't be there.
Ichigo wouldn't be there.
Ichigo wouldn't be there. So, and I would say stay off on actually having the explanation given to him by Stark. Maybe he forgets it. Maybe they just ran out of time. Who knows?
Okay.
Uh, but the important part being is that at the time that he is injured by Aizen during this fight, he is unaware, but gains that power and then loses it.
He's basically like Aizen breaks his horn, just snaps it clean off. And that is enough to count. Ichigo bursts with a lot of power that's been extra released. And he just pummels Aizen into the dirt. Enough such that even though his body is unkillable, much like it was in the original run, they are able to suppress him, seal him, and kind of bring him in. It's at this point, after finally defeating Aizen, Ichigo blacks out and has essentially become a soul cripple.
So another detail to slip in at this point would be Aizen's realization about the events that just transpired, because with how he looks during his full Arrancar form back in Hueco Mundo with his fight against Urukiora, he looks almost like a spitting image of Shiro, the original experiment that Aizen unleashed on Karakura Town, that eventually attacked his mother, with a few bits and pieces tacked on, but more or less looks almost exactly like it. So Aizen, remembering this and wondering, where the hell did that thing go? I thought it attacked this random ass girl, and with the help of Ishin, they killed it. So, like, okay, well, I'll just write that off as a loss. He sees it some 15, 16 years later in the form of this kid right in front of him, staring him in the face. So, Aizen pieces it together and goes, oh, that's where it went. Ichigo.
My dreams of creating a hollow super soldier died years ago. How many years ago? How old are you?
Aizen would probably be like, Ichigo, who was your mother? And then just leave it at that. Because up until this point, we will not be having Ichigo's full backstory explained in the same way that it was with the full details with Masaki and Shiro and Aizen's involvement and all that stuff. That's going to be saved for what we're dubbing the debugging of Serete arc.
Kind of just right after it, actually.
Kind of just right out. It's gonna come up in the future. But Ichigo defeats Aizen. Aizen is sealed, and he is forever crippled, and that more or less completes his arc. And we're not doing the Kubo thing of magicking Magooing a way to give him his powers back like they did during the original Fullbring arc. Mostly because we're nixing most of that arc anyway. but also because that would kind of cheat him out of a complete character arc. Because this would be
It's a
the
far
go.
it's a far more tragic end to that arc, but
Yeah, it's a far more tragic end, but in the same sense, more things happen to him, and he is forced to deal with more things, and therefore grows as a character. And this would be the end of that arc. Now, I hear you say, but hold on, don't we still have another whole 2 arcs by your count? And I would say yes, but Ichigo's not going to be the main character.
yep, that's where we pull the rug because Karin is also a member of the Karakura gang and was being developed alongside the whole time.
Again, this is going to be much more present in the final product. But up to this point, Karin has been far more of a character than she ever was. She's been given hints in the original series of like maybe she will, maybe she won't, kind of deal, but ultimately is dropped completely.
Remind me, did we also fuse Yuzu and Karin into a character called Karin?
I wanted to keep Yuzu, but it's still up in the air. I
Yeah, we could do something with Yuzu, but we'll get there.
I was just more like we can have a couple of useless characters, Yuzu being one of them, but not too many.
Yep.
Cut a lot of the fat, but not all of the fat.
Yuzu's there, but unlike Karin or Ichigo, just totally spiritually oblivious, just like she was in the main series.
Yeah. But
not even enough Quincy to care.
not even enough Quincy to care. But she's more or less going to be raised like after a certain point in the series. I think it was post a little late into Sarate, maybe. Definitely post invasion, where everybody kind of touches base and they realize that not only is she spiritually aware, but also she has like kind of the same deal as Ichigo, where incredible spirit pressure, but she's very underdeveloped compared to Ichigo.
But
So
hers because she just lacks the experience.
lacks the experience. But again, this is going to be another episode, but more or less Karin's going to be taking up the mantle of main character from here on out. And don't worry,
For our JoJo fans out there, this kind of turns into a Joseph Jotaro relationship.
yeah, Joseph Jotaro relationship. But yeah, he's not going to die. He is just going to fade away at this point. He's going to still be there. He's going to participate in the strictest terms. But it's going to be much more focused on Karin. Ichigo's arc is done. So that more or less wraps up the Ichigo problem. And we will be going over what is next, Trevor?
I believe next it would probably be pertinent to actually start about talking about character restructuring.
Right, yeah, I do believe we were going to go with that. I think we're going to use Sarate as a leaping off point. But yeah.
Yep, we're gonna start with Sarate because we kind of touched on most of the Karakura squad as much as they need to be touched on.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about Chad more when we get into the full rewrite and much of the review.
Yep. But that's what's going to be waiting for you guys next episode, and I believe this one is done. So see you then.
Ciao.